This is lesson 1.2 on powers and exponents. Remember that you should be taking notes in your math rules notebook and completing all the practice problems in the lesson for homework and bring them with you to class tomorrow. Also, any questions you may have, you should record while you watch the video so we can address them tomorrow in class. So this lesson actually has some vocabulary words which may be new, so you should make a vocabulary section in your math rules notebook to help you when you come to solving problems and come across these vocabulary words. So the first is a power, and a power is the result of repeated multiplication of the same factor. And this is a technical definition, but what it's saying, or an example, is 64 is a power because of the fact that 64 is equal to 4 times 4 times 4. So in this case, because we can break this 64 down into factors of 4, this is a power. So 64 is the power. The next vocabulary word is a base and the exponent. These two kind of go together. So a base is the number of variable that is used as a factor in a repeated multiplication. So in this case it would be 4. And an exponent is the number that represents the number of times the base is used in a factor. And again, sometimes these words click for some people, but for me, it works easiest when I see it as an example. So here, this is an example of how you could write out an exponent with its base, which is equal to a power. So 4 is the base, that's the base number, and 3 is the number of times you're going to multiply it. So remember, we have 4 times 4 times 4 because 4 is the base, and we have 4 3's because 3 is the exponent. So that's the number of times you multiply the base, and this is equal to the power 64. So the first example is how do we use these exponents? So write the product using an exponent. So if we have 20 times 20 times 20 times 20 times 20, how could we write that using an exponent instead of having to write it all out? And in this case, it would be 20 to the 5th because there's 5 20s. And we would read this in terms of words as 20 to the 5th power. Try the next two on your own, press pause, and then we'll go through them together. So in this case, we have 0.6 times 0.6 times 0.6, and so on, and there's 6 of them. So our exponent would be written as 0.6 to the 6th, and that's exactly how it's read. You can either say 0.6 or 0.6 to the 6th power. And here we have an example using a variable, which is the same thing, because remember, a variable represents a specific number. So m times m times m is the same thing as n to the 3rd, so we can write it as n to the 3rd power, or you could write it as m cubed. So go ahead and try the following practice problems for homework. There's 6 of them on this page. So the first section, you're going to write the product using an exponent, just as we did over on the left. And then the second 3 problems, it's going the opposite. So now how can you write them out as they are above? So instead of writing 2 to 6, write it out in full. And then in words, write how you would read it. So the next example is how do we evaluate powers that have those variables? So they have letters. So the first question is evaluate the expression y to the 3rd when y is equal to 0.2. So we have our y to the 3rd, and that's equal to 0.2 to the 3rd. So the first step is we're going to substitute what y is equal to. Then you can write it out. So use 0.2 as a factor 3 times because it's cubed here, or to the 3rd power. We need to have 3 of them below. And then the last step is actually to multiply them. So 0.2 times 0.2 times 0.2 is equal to 0.008. So press pause now and try the following. So it looks like there's 2 problems, but you're actually going to get 4 answers because you're going to evaluate h squared when h equals 5 and when it equals 0.3. And the same for number 8, h to the 5th when h equals 5 and when h equals 0.3. Press pause now and complete them. And the third example for this section is using powers in formulas. I hope you remember that at the very beginning of last year's science, we learned about area and volume. So this first example is on volume. And here we have a cube-shaped planter in which we're going to plant flowers. So here's an example of the shape of the planter. You need to find the volume of the soil needed to fill this. So in this case, we're going to use the formula for a cube, and since there's 3 sides, since we have this area at the bottom times the height, and they're all the same, volume is equal to the side length cubed. In the first step, remember, we're going to substitute for the variable, so we're going to substitute for s. So we get 16 to the 3rd. We can then write it out as 16 times 16 times 16, and then get our answers. And in this case, our units, because we have the units here, and units are very important in math so we know what we're measuring, we have centimeters. So the units are now going to be cubic centimeters. So this can either be written out or written as centimeters cubed. Because the units are cubed as well, not just the number. So now I want you to try the following 2 problems at home, where the first you're finding the area of a square with the side length given below, and then find the volume of a cube. Try to figure out what you think the area of a square is, what the equation is, and solve it and bring it with you tomorrow. That's the end of video lesson for section 1.2. Please bring any questions you have with you tomorrow.